Welcome to the Friday edition of the Sharp Football Show. This is going to be a great show. It's a great day. I'm super excited. You got this Jake Paul, Mike Tyson fight tonight. For those of you guys who are interested into that sort of theatrical performance that we might see tonight, I don't really have a take on it. I wish we saw Mike Tyson in his prime get to take on Jake Paul. That would have been a little bit more entertaining for me. But at any rate, welcome to the guys that are already in the chat. We've got DM Pens, free week, let's go. I'll talk about that in a second. Jason saying LFG. We've got Jack, more player props. Please, Jack, I got you covered on that. Don't worry about that. Big love. Exile Cultivation, good day. Everyone like and subscribe. So for you guys who want to get called out in the chat, just go over to the YouTube channel, Sharp Football Analysis. Search for us over on YouTube, and then go ahead and subscribe. You can stream this live over there. We're live on X. We're live on YouTube every single Tuesday at noon Eastern, every single Friday at noon Eastern. Giving you guys about an hour to an hour and a half of my time. Usually it's about an hour and a half, let's be honest, of my time to answer your questions, give you some of my bets, give you some of my thoughts on the upcoming weekend card. And of course, we have a massive week this week for us. If you see there in the top left-hand corner of your screen, it is free week. What does free week mean? For those of you who, oh, Matthew, you like the shirt. I appreciate that. Yeah, UNC, we've got some thoughts on Cliff Kingsbury coming up. And yes, Larry, the fight is fixed. The contract is awful. Okay, give me your opinion then. What do you think we're going to see here tonight? Give me your prediction in the chat, Larry, or anybody else, what we're going to see with Jake Paul tonight. But what is free week? Free week is the 1 week of the year that we operate just like Jerry Jones. We peel back the curtain. We don't even try to put up a curtain this week. We give you access to everything. The sun is shining in on everything that we do. You can see how the sausage is made over at Sharp Football Analysis with regard to our fantasy, our betting, our props, all of it. 100% free. How do you do it? Just go to sharp.football. Go to sharp.football, type that in, and you're going to be able to get access to all of the Week 11 NFL betting recommendations, player props, and all the written content on the website. And we have a ton. If you have any question about any player in any of the games, we've already answered it. A detailed article from Rich Rebar, who is our fantasy expert, talks about everything, not from a fantasy perspective per se. He does cover that as well, but from a football perspective, an X's and O's perspective, that's going to give you the insights you need based on quarterbacks versus the coverage that they're going to see, wide receivers versus the coverage that they're going to see, running backs and the opposing defensive structures that they're going to get, and the yards before contact. All of these types of statistics get incorporated into this article. It is a football lover's dream, and if you have never seen them before, go over to sharp.football and get on board for the free week. We've got them for all games this weekend, and you get them for free. This is the 1 week of the year that we do this, and it's completely for free. A lot of you guys have already signed up for it because I talked about it on Tuesday. We've got 8 plays that are live for Sunday already. We've got a lot more that are going to be following this afternoon and over the weekend. So make sure you're checking it out. Go to sharp.football. Everything is 100% free for you. Okay. We've got a big show, a stacked show today. Ryan is here, giving some college football bets. We've got Pam back. Pam is back in the fold this week with us, and we're going to get some NFL bets and props from Pam. Of course, we got the NFL ref analysis. We're going to hit both of the big games. There are several games that are big. I like the Sunday night game as well, but we have the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens game, massive. We've got some ref analysis on what that ref is going to do in terms of influencing the final result of that game. We also are going to be talking about the massive, another AFC game, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. We got ref analysis on that game coming up as well momentarily. Yes, Jack, British people can get free week. If you're from Canada, you can get free week. Everybody can get free week. It does not matter on what continent you reside, and you can go get free week. It's not going to be an issue. I want to talk first, before we get into college, a couple quick topics. We're going to hit the Steelers-Ravens game and a couple things that I think are going to make a big difference to the final result of that game. But first, I want to look back before we look ahead. Let's talk about last night's game, Matt. We're going to have producer Matt bring up the footage from last night's game. And before you hit play, you can just bring up the still. I want to talk a little bit about what we're going to show you. I'm going to walk through this final drive of the Washington Commanders. Matt, if you can pull it up on the screen. Okay, don't hit play yet. There you go. We got about 4 minutes and 38 seconds left. And if you see there in the bottom left of the score bug, the Washington Commanders have 2 timeouts left. There's a 2-minute warning, and they are down 2 scores. It seems like a big margin of deficit. If they go down the field and score a touchdown with the Eagles playing prevent defense, they're an onside kick away. And you know what they did 3 weeks ago is throw a Hail Mary for a walk-off touchdown to win the game. So absolutely anything is possible here, especially with over 4.5 minutes. The Kansas City Chiefs are almost driving down for go-ahead field goals with 29 seconds left. We know how teams can win games sometimes late. This is an eternity. What bugs me the most, and we're going to play this in a second, I'm going to talk over the announcers, and sometimes I'm going to be quiet. I don't know if you guys were paying attention to this last night. I know that a lot of people were commenting on some of the tweets that I was making about this drive. Number one, this is classic Cliff Kingsbury, and I'm worried that this is what we're going to get some down the stretch. He always tends to fail and fold and recoil late in the season. But what do the Commanders struggle with the most this year? It usually is not getting into the red zone. They've been good at getting into the red zone. It's scoring touchdowns when they're in the red zone, right? They haven't been very good at scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Well, on this drive, a perfect indication of what to potentially expect from Cliff Kingsbury, and that is dink and dunk and low target depth. And I don't know what he was trying to do here. That's my question. What was Cliff trying to do here? I tweeted out, is Cliff drunk? Because Cliff might have been drunk calling the plays on this drive, just completely oblivious to what the game situation is. Like I said, 4:38, go ahead and play it, Matt. I'll talk over these guys a little bit. Just pay attention to all these little underneath passes. The average target depth of the Washington Commanders on this final drive was absurd. The lack of urgency getting to the line of scrimmage and hurrying up was absurd. The clock is winding. You see the clock winding, 4:06. Look at the next snap, 3:43 left on the clock. Okay, Matt's not sure why he doesn't hear the sound. The other thing that bugged me, though, see if you could fix it, but I'll keep going, Matt. The other thing that bugged me about this game, was the commentary from Al and Kirk. And I don't want to pile on too much because I think this is a one and done. Al can't possibly be back in 2025 calling these games. It's ridiculous. But Al and Kirk are like talking about totally different things during this drive. They're talking about, like, I'm just making this up, somebody's wedding. They're talking about the future of the NFC. They're talking about all of these different things that have nothing to do with this game. They're not analyzing the play calling. They're not talking about the situation, the lack of urgency from Washington, questioning what Washington is doing. And in fact, if we don't get sound up by the 2-minute warning, I made sure to include this segment right before the first play was snapped at the 2-minute warning, where the Philadelphia Eagles crowd is going crazy before this 2-minute warning play. And again, you can keep watching these. Super low target depth. We're wasting all the time on the clock here. 2nd and 1. Here's a big moment. We're calling a draw on 2nd and 1. You are down 2 scores. You can score twice and get 2 2-point conversions, and this game is in overtime. 3rd and 5. Another draw. What in the world is Cliff Kingsbury doing? This takes it all the way to 2-minute warning. Now it's 4th down, and this is where I wish we had the audio, but on 4th down, we have Al Michaels saying the Philadelphia Eagles crowd is at an uproar. I'm not sure why, because this game is over, but the Commanders convert a first. Like, he's completely unaware that this is still a 2-score game. This is not some sort of a 3 to 4 score game. If the Commanders just drove the field and scored a touchdown in a reasonable amount of time, down by 2 scores, 2 minutes, take a 2-minute drive, you still have over 2.5 minutes with 2 timeouts and a 2-minute warning to score that last drive if you can get an onside kick, or call those timeouts and the 2-minute warning and get the ball back. But the Commanders are all the way down here. It's 1st and goal. And there's 30 seconds left. They burned 4 minutes with this dink and dunk and running the football. They still have their 2 timeouts. You see that on the scorebook? They still have their 2 timeouts. So ultimately, you know what happened. They get the touchdown, they get the 2-point conversion, and the rest of it is nonsense. But Cliff Kingsbury, one of the most irritating sequences and drives that I can imagine. At the end of the day, did it matter? No, they didn't get the onside kickback. But get this. If they had scored that first touchdown, like I said, in 2 minutes and right on 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes, then you can afford to onside kick, not get the onside kick. You still have your 2 timeouts. You still have the 2-minute warning. And now you're executing that onside kick with over 2 minutes left in the game. And suddenly you burn those 2 timeouts, have the 2-minute warning, potentially get the ball back for a game-winning drive with 2 minutes left. So just because they didn't recover the onside kick doesn't mean the game was meaningless. They couldn't have come back here. The reason it became meaningless was because of the way they were calling their plays with 4.5 minutes, 4 minutes and 15 seconds left, 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 45 seconds left, etc., all the way down before that 2-minute warning. Just absolutely insane. And you see the game, you see they still have these 2 timeouts. So that was extremely frustrating to me. I know it was extremely frustrating to some of you as well. Daniel seemed to be having a problem throwing passes beyond 15 yards. He looked like he was anticipating the pressure and not stepping into the throws. I mean, Jalen Carter must have had him in his mind in a pretzel. Jalen Carter was absolutely balling out. Outstanding game from Jalen Carter there. Let me see here. I'm trying to pull this next thing up. But I think that there was plenty of opportunity for the Commanders to have far more success than they did, and I don't know what they were doing. And it was quite disappointing just watching that game play out at the end there. Okay. Reminded me of Ron Rivera. Blake says, reminded me of Ron Rivera versus the Rams from last year. Yeah, Ron Rivera was terrible. I don't want to be reminded of Ron Rivera, but you're not wrong, Blake. Okay, let's go to the next topic, Matt. Okay. We've got a huge game on deck here with the Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. And I want to dive into something that I believe the Steelers must not do in this game, that I'm worried that they will do, but they absolutely cannot do it if they want to have a chance to win this game. And I'm not sure if you guys remember back to the Tuesday show and pick up on any of this or not, or anticipate what I'm going to say here. But Tyler, appreciate it. Happy Friday to you as well. Better late than never, as I always say. Matt, why don't you pull up that first graphic? Okay. What I want you to look at this graphic, if you're watching on X, if you're watching on YouTube, we're talking about the Steelers-Ravens game, and the graphic depicts defensive pressure rate along the X-axis and blitz rate along the Y-axis. So the teams that get, and this is early downs only, first and second down, this is year-to-date data. The teams that get a lot of pressure and blitz a lot are over there in the top right quadrant. We're talking about the Cleveland Browns, the Denver Broncos, the Minnesota Vikings, the Washington Commanders are over there as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers are there as well. They blitz a lot on early downs. They get a lot of pressure, above average rates on both. I don't want to talk about the Steelers offense. The Steelers defense. I want to talk about the Ravens defense, though. And Jay, thank you. The first touchdown score with Robinson for the Washington Commanders, that was what, plus 900 that we hit last night. We've been on fire with those picks on first touchdown score, anytime touchdown score. It's all in the article. If you're not part of the free mailing list that we have, you need to, because we send all these out to you. You also get them as part of free week. So if you're over at sharp.football, you can get on board for all of these things for free. But yeah, we hit the plus 900. Shout out to Ray Summerlin on that one. Okay, back to this. We're talking about the Baltimore Ravens defense. The Baltimore Ravens are sitting down there in the lower left quadrant. On early downs, they have the fourth lowest pressure rate. It's right around 25%. On early downs, they have one of the lowest blitz rates in the NFL. I want you to think about this. Take a snapshot, blink your eyes, helps take a little quick snapshot of where the Ravens sit on this graphic. Lower left quadrant, one of the lowest pressure rates, fourth lowest in the NFL on early downs. Matt, go to the next graphic. Next graphic is third downs only. Same graph, just moving from first down and second down to third down. And where are the Ravens? You're going to look back there in that lower left-hand quadrant, and you're not going to see them. They're nowhere close to 25% pressure rate. They're nowhere close to one of the lowest blitz rates in the NFL. In fact, they are now the second. It's hard to tell if they're the second or the third. They're very close to being tied for second highest pressure rate in the NFL on third downs. They bring a ton of pressure. They blitz at a much higher rate than they were doing on early downs, and they get one of the highest amounts of pressure of any defense in the NFL. This is what the Pittsburgh Steelers need to be worried about. They need to be worried about that third down pressure, and the reason is found on this final graphic. Let's go to the final graphic, Matt. This graphic looks at the drop back rate, which is the passing rate. How often are you dropping back to pass a football on early downs on the on the x-axis from left to right? The teams that pass the ball the least are over there on the far left. The teams that pass the ball the most are over there on the far right on early downs. And then this looks at their rushing efficiency when they choose to run the football. How many yards per carry are they gaining? With the teams that are the most efficient at the top of the graph, just like the Baltimore Ravens or the Philadelphia Eagles. Where are the Pittsburgh Steelers offensively here? On the bottom left. Bottom left. They are the second lowest pass rate this season. The number 31 team, number 31 pass rate on early downs. And they have well below average rushing efficiency when they choose to run the football on those plays. Well below average rushing efficiency. So Matt, you can come back to me now. What is this telling you guys? This should be telling you that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to run if they stick to what they've been doing, they're going to run the ball a ton at the second highest rate in the NFL on early downs. And they're going to be doing that, going run heavy, at a time when the Baltimore Ravens get no pressure and don't blitz. The perfect time to pass is when they don't get pressure and they don't blitz. And that's on early downs. But the Steelers are committed to the run on early downs. And the Ravens have one of the best run defenses in the NFL. Then the Steelers are going to find themselves in third and long. And that is when the Ravens move from one of the lowest pressure rates in the NFL to one of the highest pressure rates in the NFL, which is what that second graphic showed. On third downs, you move from one of the lowest to one of the highest. So in three graphics, I basically just broke down the game for you. When you watch this game on Sunday afternoon, pay attention to the play calls of the Pittsburgh Steelers on first and second down. If they crank up their pass rate and throw the ball a little bit more on first down and or second down, Steelers have a great shot at pulling the upset. They'll be attacking the weakness of the Ravens defense at a time when the Ravens don't get pressure. Russ will be able to sit back there, have a little bit more time in the pocket, and they'll be able to hit some of those big plays. If they try to do what they always do and run the ball on early downs, they will be running into a buzzsaw of that Baltimore Ravens defense, and then they'll be stuck trying to pass the ball on third down when Russ will be undoubtedly under a lot more pressure than he would have been on first and second down. So that's the game. Just broke it down for you right there. 5 minutes or less. All right, let's go over to college. As a reminder, before we bring Ryan in, jump over to YouTube and you can chat with me here. Dan says, love being here live. Thanks for all you do, Warren. I appreciate that. Does Russ tend to hold on to the ball longer on third down? Yes, as do most quarterbacks, although I can't honestly tell you that I know his time to throw ranking on early downs, but I do know that it's relatively high on third down. So I would have to look that up on early downs only. Okay, let's move over to Ryan McCrystal and we'll dive into some of the best bets for college football this week. All right. We're going to bring Ryan in here. Ryan is 18-10 on the show. He went 2-1 last week. A 64%, guys. 64% for free. We've given you every single one of these bets every Friday, noon Eastern. Game one, we've got Tennessee at Georgia, Ryan. And you are going to be looking at a bet here, fading the Georgia offense. So I'll let you share the bet, but the 8-1 Tennessee Volunteers are ranked 4th in the country. The 7-2 Georgia Bulldogs are ranked 10th in the country. Georgia has won the last 7 meetings against Tennessee. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here, Ryan. 18-10, looking to build on that. Show us why we should be fading the Georgia offense as a large 10-point, 10-point favorite. It's dropping down to 9.5, but in that way.
Yeah, a couple reasons why I want to play that side of the ball. It has a little bit to do with Tennessee's defense, a little bit to do with Georgia's offense, and some unknowns. I want to start by addressing the injury issue with Tennessee, which is a big reason why I'm avoiding the spread in this game and instead choosing to just play one side of the ball for the bet in this matchup. Tennessee's quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, was hurt last week. Head injury, assumed to be a concussion. He's expected to play. It sounds like he's going to go, so that's good news for Tennessee, but still not 100% certain yet. Their running back, Dylan Sampson, star of the offense for them, was banged up last week, left the game, came back, was less than 100%. He is not on the injury report, but based on how he looked last week and how he was talking about it after the game, he's playing through an injury. So he is at the very least less than 100%, even though he's going to go. And then wide receiver Dante Thornton, their leading wide receiver, he's questionable. I think we're kind of assuming he's not going to be at 100%, probably not going to play. That particular injury, though, I do want to point out, I'm not concerned about that one. I just wanted to talk about it because he's their leading wide receiver. So it stands out. If you've got your quarterback, your running back, and your leading receiver injured, that looks like a big problem. Dante Thornton's their 4th wide receiver, though. He's got a 9.4% target rate on the season. The fact that he leads the team in receiving yards is kind of a fluke. It's based off of basically 3 plays. 36% of his receiving yards came on 3 plays. Now, big playability is, a skill you want, but those 3 plays were against Mississippi State, maybe the worst power conference team in the country, Chattanooga, and Kent State. So 3 big plays against 3 terrible teams made up 36% of his yardage. So if he doesn't play, I'm not concerned about that. But there's the Iamaleava injury. That's a concern. Sampson playing at less than 100%. That's a concern given how much Tennessee relies on the run game. So the combination of those makes me just want to avoid that side of the ball. I lean Tennessee against the spread. If I knew that those guys were healthy, I'm definitely taking Tennessee with a 10-point spread. But I'd rather just go with the side of the ball where we know a lot more about both teams because Tennessee has consistently been great on defense, and there's some questions about Georgia's offense. Now, the key matchup here is really Carson Beck against the Tennessee pass rush. Tennessee has one of the best pass rushes in the country. Now, Tennessee fans, if you're listening, might be rolling their eyes a little bit because I know there's been some frustration from the fan base with the lack of sacks. It's a fair concern. They ranked 80th in sack conversion rate with their percentage of pressures turning into sacks. That's a legitimate concern. It's going to hurt them in certain matchups. I don't think it matters in this matchup, though, because Carson Beck is so bad against pressure. They don't need to get him to the ground to derail the Georgia offense. I want to go through some of these stats for Carson Beck and look at his numbers and compare where he ranks against pressure and compared to when he has a clean pocket. Because obviously every quarterback gets worse under pressure, right? So where the drop off and where he ranks really demonstrates how much worse he is relative to everybody else. So completion rate for Carson Beck in a clean pocket, he ranks 35th in the country. Completion rate under pressure, 121st. Yards per attempt in a clean pocket for Carson Beck, 43rd in the country, 127th versus pressure. So when he's in a clean pocket, he's pretty good. He's an above average quarterback. He gets the job done. Against pressure, one of the worst quarterbacks in the country, ranking 120th or worse in both of those categories. Tennessee, they have a great pass rush. And in fact, they're very good. They rank 2nd in pressure rate with only 4 or fewer pass rushers. So they don't even need to rely on the blitz. I think that's also key, given how we've seen Carson Beck struggle to read the defense downfield at times this year. If Tennessee's able to get home with only 4 pass rushers, that means that everybody else is out there in coverage, making it harder, clogging up passing lanes and whatnot for Carson Beck. And he is very interception prone this season. He's really struggled. So this has completely derailed the Georgia offense. And we've seen that in their game, 2 games against 2 really strong defenses they've played this year, Texas and Ole Miss. In those games, Georgia has had 17 drives start inside their own 40-yard line. So looking at drives where they really got to march down the majority of the field. Those 17 drives against Texas and Ole Miss have produced 10 total points. That's horrific to only be getting one touchdown and only 2 total scoring drives out of those 17 drives in those games. Now, obviously, they beat Texas. They won fairly convincingly. How did they do that? Well, they jumped out to a 23-0 halftime lead. That sounds great, but it didn't really say anything about the Georgia offense. Their longest scoring drive to get to that 23-0 lead was 34 yards. Their offense did nothing against Texas. We saw just last week, their offense was completely shut down by the Ole Miss defense. Tennessee fits right into the same category as Texas and Ole Miss as being one of the best in the country. I think they're going to do the exact same thing to Georgia. Now, like I said, Tennessee's got some injuries on offense. They don't have a great offense to begin with. Maybe Georgia still wins this game. But if they win, I think it's going to be more like a 17-10 kind of score, 20-10, something like that. So I like the under on Tennessee's team total sitting out there at 29.5 points. That's a huge number for Carson Beck to put up against this kind of defense.
So low scoring game. Let's hope that is the case. Now we'll move over to Utah at Colorado, Ryan, and we're going to be fading Deion's team here. Utah is coming off of a narrow loss to BYU by only 1 point. Colorado pulled a big-time upset in a major way, 41-27 over Texas Tech last game. The Buffaloes have covered the spread in 6 of their last 7 games, as you know. Shedeur Sanders ranks top 10 in passing yards per game. Travis Hunter is the current favorite for the Heisman Trophy. And Utah's struggles on offense have led to not 3, but 5 straight losses, Ryan. So show us why we should be fading Deion and backing Utah on Saturday in what I think is a ridiculous kickoff. We've got a noon kickoff for a home game with Colorado hosting Utah, and it's at noon Eastern. Why are they doing this? And I guess we'll have a fun game to watch as we root on the Utah side here, catching 10.5, but why do you like them?
Yeah, my first instinct here was Colorado's rolling right now. Utah's falling apart. My first instinct was to think Colorado would win big, but when I looked into the numbers, I think this is just a particularly bad matchup in terms of where the strengths and weaknesses match up. Colorado much improved this year, especially on defense. Utah is kind of falling apart, lost 5 straight games, but their last 3 losses have been by a touchdown or less. And we just saw them last week almost knock off BYU and potentially derail BYU's Big 12 title hopes. They now have the opportunity to do the exact same thing to Colorado because as of right now, Colorado controls its own fate for the playoff. If they win out, they're going to the playoff. They're going to the Big 12 title game where they would face likely BYU with a chance to get into the playoff. So there's a lot of motivation for Utah, and we've seen that they haven't quit yet. So I think that they're still going to show up to play this game. Now, the way that you beat Utah, there's 2 things that you got to have to do. You got to run the ball, and you got to protect the quarterback. If you can do those things, you're going to win against Utah easily. We've seen some teams like Arizona State take care of business by doing those things. Well, what can Colorado not do? They can't run the ball, and they've got one of the worst offensive lines in the country. So their 2 biggest weaknesses, they match up pretty well for Utah here. Now, let's take a quick look at the running game. Utah ranks 102nd in opponent-adjusted yards before contact allowed. That's been a big reason why they've fallen off this year, is this usually strong Utah run defense has struggled. Any team that can run the ball is going to be able to handle Utah, but Colorado can't. They rank by that same metric 105th. So this is weakness versus weakness. And, I suppose maybe Colorado could lean into the run game and try to exploit that weakness in Utah. Maybe they could try to gain an edge there. They've never tried to do that. They've played some other teams that don't have a good run game, and they don't have a good run defense, and they have not leaned on the run game at all. They try to avoid it at all costs, essentially. It's a very pass-heavy offense as they want to showcase Shedeur Sanders, obviously. So Colorado has improved on defense, but the offensive line is obviously still a disaster, which is a big reason why they're not running the ball. And that also plays into their issues in the passing game, which have shown up at times because they can't protect Shedeur Sanders. Now, they've played a lot of bad teams lately. It hasn't been an issue. They've been able to protect him just enough. He's been able to scramble just enough to make some plays. But take a look at where these teams rank in opponent-adjusted pressure rate. Colorado's offense ranks 104th in pressure rate allowed. Not shocking. We know their offensive line is bad. Utah's defense leads the nation in opponent-adjusted pressure rate. So you have ultimate strength going up against Colorado's biggest weakness. Shedeur Sanders is going to be under a ton of pressure. Now, he can escape pressure, but when he's been pressured at a very high rate this year, it's been a problem for Colorado. There have been 3 games in which Sanders saw a pressure rate of 30% or higher. That was Kansas State, a Colorado loss. Nebraska, a Colorado loss. Baylor, a Colorado overtime win. So they have really struggled. Their two losses and their one overtime win were all these games where Sanders was consistently under pressure. And we have good reason to think that he's going to be under pressure against the top rated pass rush in the country right now in Utah. So, Colorado has improved so much against the run, on defense that I think we have to look at that side of the ball, because the question is, okay, yeah, Shedeur Sanders is going to be under pressure a lot, but can Utah do anything on offense? Can they do just enough to keep this game close? I think so. I think they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit, even though Colorado's defense has improved. The main reason they've improved is that they've started to stack the box at a really high rate, even when the offensive formation doesn't necessarily dictate that. They're trying to create early contact as a way to sort of mask some of their talent deficiencies in the front. And it's helped. Their run defense has gotten much better, but they still rank 93rd in opponent adjusted yards after contact. So if you have a physical running back, you should be able to still move the ball against this Colorado defense. Now, Utah's offense, when they run the ball, they line up in heavy formations. So they're inviting you to stack the box. So Colorado's not going to be able to gain an edge simply putting too many defenders in the box for you to run the ball against them, because Utah is going to be able to match up with that. They love those heavy formations. They're used to it. Now, Mekhi Bernard, their running back, he's a physical runner. He ranks 20th in the nation in yards after contact per attempt against the stacked box. So again, his strength pairs well with Colorado's weakness on defense. So still think Colorado wins this game. It's at home. That helps them. Shedeur Sanders is going to be able to make some plays. Obviously, there's a huge gap between the two quarterbacks in this matchup. But I think Utah really limits what Colorado can do on offense, keeps this a relatively low-scoring game. And I think Utah runs the ball just enough to keep this game close, that maybe it's like a 20-10 type of game, and Utah can cover the spread here.
All right, there we go. Well, two great best bets from Ryan this week. As a reminder, make sure that you are following Ryan over there on X, as well as you're following all of his great analysis and articles up at sharpfootballanalysis.com. He's got written content for multiple games this weekend for the college football slates, looking to build on his excellent 18-10 record so far this year on this show. Even better record, I believe, in the written content, Ryan. So good luck this weekend and keep up the great work. All right, now I am going to hit up a couple things in the chat. People have mentioned that they got on board for the free week and they read Rich's worksheet article, and they decided as a result of that to bench Terry McLaurin last night in the game. I don't know. There we go. Tyler said, shout out to Rich's article for getting me to bench Terry last night. Outstanding move by Tyler, and great job by Rich for making that call. We also know some of you guys are continuing to say Jay's mentioning great call on the first touchdown score with Brian Robinson. This is all part of free week. We are giving these recommendations to you all part of free week. So if you head over to sharp.football, you see it up there in left-hand corner of your screen, my right, your left. Go over there, check it out. Free for everything this week. All of our betting recommendations, all of our prop bets, all of our detailed worksheet analysis. This is how we come up with our decisions. You'll see the process. I had a massive write-up in there for one of the craziest bets that you might make this week on a game. There's a first quarter bet, actually, the first one of the year, that I thought the line was completely wrong. And it is completely wrong. Now, the bet may not win. That remains to be seen. But the line was completely wrong, completely inaccurate. And so if you want to see what game that is with a line that is totally wrong by the sports books who weren't paying attention to one of the most key factors for any team this year, they slipped up, they weren't focusing, they just ran their numbers and produced it. You got to go and check that out. So that's up there right now. Okay. I want to go into the chat real quick before we bring Pam on with some commentary on the Jake Paul fight, because this is getting a lot of people's attention. So a lot of people want to know about the Jake Paul. We've got a couple of opinions. Remember, go over to YouTube and put your comments in the YouTube chat if you want to participate in some of your predictions for this. You can follow us on YouTube, Sharp Football Analysis. Go search Sharp Football Analysis. Follow us there. Larry's prediction was if Tyson doesn't need the early money, he knocks out Paul early. If not, Mike slows down mid-rounds and loses by decision. We also have Jack questioning if we get Tyson to take a dive. We also have a landscaper outside. Hopefully that's not going to impact the audio here too much. They're running a little bit behind schedule right now. So I'll get some other predictions, but one of the guys that I know, a good friend of mine, he's a big boxing buff, and his name is Matt. He says he thinks it's probably Paul by decision. Could be fixed. If it's fixed, they might have Paul KO Tyson, but I bet it will go the distance. Tyson will be very tired after a couple of rounds. I mean, this guy is really old. So that was my friend Matt's opinion on what we're going to happen here, what we're going to see, what happens here. Yes, Kyle, we did lose a prop last night. Thank you very much. We bet Devonta Smith over receiving yards and lost that. Of course, we will mention that for you. Cody, you love betting the first quarter, first half stuff. There are some edges, but this one, the line, the market is just completely wrong. Completely wrong on that. So go check that out if you want to see it over as part of free week. Okay, now let's start talking about NFL. Let's get back on track. Move from college to a little bit of boxing entertainment to the NFL. What you guys are all here for, of course. Welcome in Pam. Let's go ahead and bring in Pam. Okay, we missed you, Pam, last week, but you've been crushing it, and I'm excited to dive into the couple of games that you've got. You're going to be talking about a couple of big games here. The first one on deck is the Pittsburgh Steelers as a 3-point home dog versus the Ravens, and you are taking the points with the Steelers. They are riding a 4-game win streak, and they've won 6 of the past 7 meetings against the Ravens, with each of the last 8 games between these two being decided by 7 points or fewer. You are on the dog, and you've got a number of props here. Welcome to the show. Show us why you like the Steelers and reasons you think that their passing game, led by Russ and Pickens, will be able to get it done.
Well, first off, I heard everything that you said about the Steelers and what they tend to do and what they should do.
Yep.
That was like a personal attack. I've somehow convinced myself that Russell Wilson is like the greatest quarterback in the league right now. So because of that, yes, I love the Steelers at +3. I love the Steelers to win outright. Definitely with covering the +3 spread at home. And it starts with a lot of what you mentioned, the Ravens' defense vulnerabilities. Despite their reputation, we typically know that the Ravens are super stout on both sides, offensively and defensively, and that just hasn't been the case this season. The defense has shown some really surprising weaknesses throughout, and it's been consistent from start up until now, allowing the most plays of 15-plus yards, the most plays of 20-plus yards in the league, 22nd in yards allowed of 30-plus. This is a Ravens secondary defense that is just giving up bomb play after bomb play, struggling against the deep passes, 29th in YPA allowed, 24th in touchdowns allowed on those deep balls. I believe in Russ. I believe that Russ, because you have Mike Tomlin as a coach who is now chasing his 18th consecutive winning season, has the game plan and knows what they have to do, and that is just throw it down the Ravens' throat. That's what you have. I believe that's the script. The Steelers' second half dominance is also a reason why I love backing the Steelers at home. Pittsburgh has been a second half team all season long, with or without Russ, outscoring opponents 135-55 after halftime. That is the largest margin in the league. So you have Mike Tomlin. It goes back to Tomlin. You have Tomlin as a head coach who knows how to make the proper adjustments, and they come out strong and firing in the third and fourth quarter, which is a huge factor when Baltimore is 32nd in fourth quarter points allowed. So my tip is I'm also looking at the live line to back Pittsburgh in the second half, back Pittsburgh or the over for the fourth quarter. And I have to ask myself, well, why is there such a second half dominance? It's because Russell Wilson is having a bit of a resurgence. Since taking over as a Steelers quarterback, Wilson has shown signs of his former self. I believe he's always been the great quarterback. Yes, he's getting older. Yes, he's transitioned from a new team, but his abilities are still there, and we're seeing it. He's 6th in YPA, 5th in touchdown rate, and since week 7, since he's made his comeback, he's 2nd in air yards per attempt, and nearly 20% of his passes are that deep threat that I was talking about that can highly expose the Ravens secondary. That's the 4th most in the league. So Wilson's deep ball abilities, it can exploit the Ravens' weaknesses in the secondary. You have Tomlin as a head coach. Ravens on the road, beyond garbage. That pass defense has been significantly worse when traveling. 29th in YPA allowed, the 6th highest touchdown rate allowed on the road. And they're potentially going to be missing Kyle Hamilton. That's their key defensive player in the secondary, that safety. So when Hamilton has been off the field this season, Baltimore is allowing at 9.3 YPA and 11% touchdown rate. That's further weakening the pass defense. So if I'm sticking to the game plan that the Ravens secondary is going to continue to be exposed at the expense of Russell Wilson, who's going to be the benefiting factor? It's got to be George Pickens. I have been ladder heavy this season. I'm kind of taking more risk because props have been doing so well. And I think it's a calculated risk taking George Pickens receiving yards in a ladder. You got Wilson as quarterback. He's become the deep threat powerhouse. He has 276 yards in 3 games. And I just mentioned the Ravens road defense. Weak against receivers. In 5 road games for Baltimore, they're allowing at least 95 receiving yards to all 5 leading receivers that they have faced. Pickens at 70, his yardage prop is 70. Give me minus 105 for his base of 70, and then I'm hitting the ladder of 80, 90, and 100 at plus money. I think Pickens can have himself a huge day, big playability. Against Baltimore struggles. I love the ladder, and I love the Steelers at home with Tomlin as head coach.
There we go. I don't disagree, Pam. I mean, we've seen the George Pickens, that longest reception from George Pickens definitely hit pretty frequently. We were on it, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. It's a hard bet. They moved the line up, but it's hard not to expect that will hit and have success. They do like to target Pickens right down the sideline. The Ravens are a little bit weaker deep down the middle of the field rather than the sidelines, but I expect a great game. I cannot wait to watch this one. And I also can't wait to watch the game that you've got up next for us, Pam, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the Buffalo Bills. They're 9-0. They're undefeated. They win in every single way under the sun and then some, it seems. The Buffalo Bills are sitting at 8-2. Some people are saying this game isn't quite as meaningful. I don't think you realize, like, the Kansas City Chiefs have almost lost multiple games. They're headed for a three-peat. They're trying to get the Super Bowl. They need the first-round bye. There is only one first-round bye available. And if the Kansas City Chiefs don't win this game, then all of a sudden, one more loss if the Buffalo Bills can keep it going in what looks like a very weakened AFC East. They have the head-to-head, and Kansas City drops one other game down the stretch, and all of a sudden Buffalo's got home field advantage. So this is a massively important game for both of these teams. Kansas City covers the spread in 85% of the time that Patrick Mahomes has made an underdog. This total has gone over in 6 of Buffalo's last 7 home games. Show us why we should expect Patrick Mahomes to pull off another upset, Pam, and why we should be taking the game over the total.
Well, I actually didn't know that trend, so that helps. But yeah, it's kind of what you mentioned. It's the offensive firepower, which is why I like the over. Both teams have impressive offensive stats. You have the Bills 3rd in points per drive. The Chiefs are 8th. Buffalo reaches the red zone or scores at the 2nd highest rate in the league. KC is the 7th highest. So you're giving me 45.5 or something that could be a higher scoring affair. I love the over, but I love backing the Chiefs just for the outright win. I don't even care to get the spread because the Chiefs' 3rd down efficiency, the Chiefs' ability to sustain their drives is pretty solid. They have a league high 52% conversion rate on 3rd downs. That 52% is by margin compared to the league average of 39. So if the Bills are forcing a 3rd and long situation, oh great, our defense did its job. No problem for the Chiefs because Mahomes and company lead the league in 3rd and down situations. Why? Because when you have this efficiency, you're able to maintain your possessions, put points up on the board. But why are you so efficient now? Because they have 3 playmakers. They always have playmakers, but there's 3 go-to guys for the Chiefs, and it starts with the ground game advantage with Kareem Hunt. He's become a force for the Chiefs, 2nd in the NFL in rushes since week 4. He's dominating the backfield in touches over 5 starts, and he's tied with the league in 10 attempts inside the 5-yard line. It is a very efficient run game now with Hunt. And Buffalo's vulnerability has always been, still is, against running backs. 25th in the league in yards per carry. That could make Hunt a key factor in this matchup. But they don't have just Hunt. Yeah, now you also have DeAndre Hopkins exploiting Buffalo's slot coverage. Hopkins has increased his slot usage 38% and 34% in recent games. That could be a huge factor, at least in the passing game, because the Bills allow the fourth highest receptions to slot receivers, the third most yards per target to slot receivers, compared to the sixth fewest to outside receivers. Hopkins himself can have a huge game. This is a big mismatch. So now that I'm saying that, I should probably be looking at Hopkins player props or playing him in fantasy. And then of course you have the go-to guy, just his go-to comfort is Travis Kelce, Mahomes' go-to target. He's a crucial part of the Chiefs offense, double-digit targets in 3 straight games. He's starting to find that rhythm again. His consistent involvement is always going to be something that puts a lot of pressure on opposing defenses, and at least it's going to help KC's passing attack always. It's always going to be an option. So then I have to ask myself, if I like the Chiefs to win this game outright, how are the Bills going to clap back, respond? Bills receiving core right now, a lot of challenges in the passing game. You have Keon Coleman, who's ruled out for Sunday. Amari Cooper, he missed the past 2 games with a wrist injury. Dalton Kincaid left Sunday's game with a knee injury. This is a banged up receiving core. The absences or these injuries could definitely play a role in Bills' offensive output, giving an edge to the Chiefs. And I also like the Chiefs' defensive strength to win this game outright. They're 9th in yards per pass attempt allowed, which could further exploit Buffalo's receiving core issues. But I still like the over in this game, even though I'm saying that the Bills' offense is going to be limited, because you still have Allen and his legs, and he's going to find ways, and he's going to bomb it downfield no matter who's down there. He's going to find an open receiver, and potentially it could just be a lot of back and forth. But I just do like the Chiefs to come out with the win and the over on 45.5.
There you go, Pam. Last game on deck, not quite as sexy. Certainly not from a quarterback play perspective, but it's going to be interesting nevertheless. Fortunately for us, they flexed this one out of Sunday Night Football. But you do have a thought on this game, and you're kind of playing towards the ugly nature of it with these quarterbacks, Pam. You're looking at this Indianapolis Colts team that is now going back to Anthony Richardson, replacing Joe Flacco after his couple of games of struggling, against the New York Jets, who are hosting them, coming off of a 31-6 blowout loss to the Arizona Cardinals, and they went through tackling drills like they were a high school team that had a bad game and lost to their rival, and now needs to get back on track. What do you like in the game when the Indianapolis Colts take on the New York Jets here now at 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon?
Well, when you see this game, the Colts at the Jets, what about this game says 44 is not just too high? This was the first thing that I looked at Monday morning, and no line movement, and I'm like, is nobody paying attention? These are the 2 worst offenses in the league. But at least, minus the offenses, it's about the defense. The Jets' defense at home specifically is such a force to be reckoned with. It's nothing short of exceptional. At home, they're allowing a league low 12 points per game at MetLife. It has become a true fortress, and that's really all they have going for them, because Aaron Rodgers hasn't delivered on his side of things. But it's such a stark contrast difference in performance when the Jets are allowing such a league low in points at home, but they're allowing 27 on the road. So that just tells you like the significant home field advantage that they have to keep this total under 44. But aside from their defense, it's Anthony Richardson making his return, and nothing about him says that it's a threatening passing game either. The Jets are allowing the 3rd lowest completion rate. They lead the league in YPA allowed, and at home they've only given up 3 total passing touchdowns. That's the fewest in the league. Richardson, interceptions, sacks, his comeback, it's going to be a baptism by fire. And you see it all season long. Whether it is Flacco, whether it is Richardson, the Colts are having a lot of offensive struggles. It's been far from impressive, specifically in that passing game. They're 29th in passing success rate, struggling to move the chains, 3rd down inefficiency. That type of lack of offense could lead to stalled drives, fewer scoring opportunities, and potential turnovers, which is what we've seen. Throw in the Jets have one of the best pass rushes in the league, a league high sack rate, especially when they are playing at home. It's a relentless force. It's going to disrupt the Colts' offensive rhythm, leading to negative plays, turnovers, I also considered as a prop the Jets defensive touchdown, but I wasn't getting enough odds for that. It was like 4-1, and I think I would rather have something closer to the 5-1, 6-1 range. So that's an option. But instead, I went with Colts and Jets under 44.
Well, that's 3 bets, and you came out firing, Pam. We got Peter saying Pam comes off of her bye week firing, and you absolutely did. So welcome back. We're happy to have you. Good luck on all these games. All the fans out there, really excited to have your analysis back here as well. So
Can I say one thing before we chat?
absolutely.
There was one comment, and I like to address the comments just as you do. Week 10 picks. This is from Casual Ren. Week 10 picks were horrible. Overall, still up. Yes. I went 1-3 last week, and you know what? Life was lifing. If you noticed, I wasn't in my typical background. Life was lifing. There are no excuses, but hopefully this week I'm back in my home setting and things get better. So thanks for following, guys.
Actually, Pam, I will tell you, he's probably talking about the subscription, which we had a losing week in week 10 on the subscription, which pretty much our first losing week. So I don't think he was referring to you. You keep crushing it. Good luck in all your games this week, and we'll catch you next Friday. All right. So I want to go through a couple things on the chat. Absolutely. We are up. Let's go to the records, because you're right. Let's focus here. Last week was our first down week. Like college, props, and NFL, all 3 were down. First losing week across those this year in terms of all of them. That said, $100 better is up $9,794 this year, and computer total is absolutely crushing 72%. If you want access to all of these bets, which we've been winning week in and week out, save for last week, head over to sharp.football and you'll get them all for free this week. As part of free week, you get what Ryan and Pam bring to the table, of course. You get all the props and the best bets and all of Rich's excellent analysis, things that are typically locked away. We peel back the curtain. We do it 1 week only, and is this week. So head over to sharp.football and you're going to be able to get those out. Let's see here. Before we go into some of the ref analysis, I do want to bring up one interesting point. One of the guys mentioned about Exile. Does he work for me? Exile says no, he wish he did. I love you guys a ton and all your comments in the chat and your support over the short duration of this show. But some of you guys have been following me for years before that. We even got a video that we didn't get up in time for this show, but we're probably going to bring it into next week's show, from a film producer who follows the show and loves the show and has a great transition into our referee analysis, which we're going to do ahead of next week's show. So we're going to get a new referee transition before next week's show, submitted by somebody who follows the show and is a film producer. So I'm extremely excited for you guys to see that. But certainly, I've had lots of different people reach out looking for jobs and things of that nature. It's tough during the season. In the off season, we can evaluate more things and have a little bit more time to do that. I also got to say, I mean, I might as well do a promo for this mic. I got this mic here. You guys probably don't, like, literally 10 feet away from me, 15 feet away from me. We've got landscapers with fans and lawnmowers going crazy. I thought producer Matt was going to have to mute me. I was going to have to walk to like my film watching room, which is over there, or head back behind the pool tables and shuffleboard tables over there to talk to you from the closet or something far away. This mic, DJI, this thing is got some great noise reduction capabilities because these guys got fans. I live in an area where there's lots of woods, lots of trees. It's fall time here in the Northeast. Leaves are all over, so they are doing all their work there. And somehow you guys are hearing it perfectly. So that is absolutely great. Speaking of records, yeah, I want to see, Matt, tell me if we got the sound on this. Go ahead and play this. We'll see if the sound works or not.
Yeah, I like Alabama in this matchup, and I'm feeling pretty confident because I think I got a pretty good handle on LSU. I'm 3-0 betting on LSU this year. I picked USC and Texas A&M against them, and then I picked LSU against Ole Miss. So we've got a strong trend. All the numbers seem to point to Alabama. Looking at all those numbers, I think Ole Miss throws the ball on Georgia's defense pretty easily, and I have serious questions about Georgia's ability to move the ball consistently in both the passing game and the run game. So give me the points, and I'll take Ole Miss in this matchup.
I'm definitely loving Deebo Samuel in this spot this weekend. He's coming out of the bye, but it really kind of goes back to how Deebo Samuel has performed with the absence of Brandon Ayuk. So we're looking at a hyper-efficient player getting more opportunities. It's just tried and true with Jahmyr Gibbs' kind of longest rush. And the books still are kind of just meandering their way up. You can get this still at like 15.5. He's cleared this number in 18 of 26 career games, 6 of 8 games this season.
Javonte Williams, longest rush, under 10.5. It's plus 100 at DraftKings. It's plus 100 at MGM. Looks like ESPN Bet just moved from plus 100 to minus 120. They just moved 20 cents on me releasing this. Go over to DraftKings or go over to MGM. They still have it plus 100. All right, so that was last week's video. We weren't sure if we were going to get that in time. Matt, you got it in time, and we weren't sure if the sound was going to work. But those are some of our picks from the show last week. As you know, Rich had to fill in for Pam and did a great job with some of the props. I also had the George Kittle longest reception over 21.5. That one cashed. So it was a great the Javonte was ridiculous. I wish every bet exile was as easy as the Javonte Williams longest rush under, was it 10.5? I think I said. He had 1 carry for 1 yard. You're right, Exile. So it was a great week for the show, and hopefully we have another great week this upcoming week for the show. Unfortunately, sometimes the subscriber picks aren't quite as good as the show, or vice versa. But like I said, subscriber picks, we've been cashing 9 out of 10 weeks this year, and we've had the best start to a season we have ever had. So let's get to Joe. He's been waiting. Behind the scenes. He is live from Las Vegas. And Joe, we've got an interesting couple of games, and you want to talk about a couple of interesting referees here. The first game that we want to discuss is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens. This is a game that everybody is obviously talking about, massively important game. And on the call for this game, we have Clay Martin. So talk to us a little bit about what you think Clay Martin being on the call for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore is actually the Ravens at the Steelers. I was looking at the graphic. It's the Ravens at the Steelers. What do you think Clay Martin being on the call means to this game?
Yeah, I chose these 2 games this week. Actually, I didn't choose them. They chose themselves. I mean, of all the games, these are the 2 to do. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and then we're going to do KC Buffalo afterwards. But yeah, Clay Martin. So here's some interesting numbers for this week and things to keep an eye on or assess as you go into the game. Clay Martin, number 1 for offensive holding penalties per game. And why is that important? Ravens ranked 3rd in offensive holding penalties per game. Steelers ranked 9th. So both teams right now, top 10 penalized for offensive holding, with the number 1 crew calling this particular penalty. Second thing, Pittsburgh Steelers, the number 1 beneficiary of roughing the passer penalties this season. They've benefited from 7 roughing the passer penalties. The Ravens, the number 1 penalized defense for roughing the passer. So that doesn't sound good for Baltimore, but the good news for the Ravens, the Clay Martin crew, and this goes all the way back to the 2020 season, they call a below average percentage, actually 48% below the league average for roughing the passer. So Baltimore may catch a break on this one. The other part of this game, Baltimore highly penalized for surrendering automatic first downs via penalty. This is kind of standard operating procedure for Baltimore. They play a more physical style of defense, and it invites a lot more penalties as far as defensive pass interference, defensive holding, roughing the passer, as I just mentioned. So the good news for Baltimore in this is the Sean Hockley crew have called the fewest defensive holding and defensive pass interference penalties this season, but just behind them is the Clay Martin crew. So they're going to try to let them play a little bit here. And so some weaknesses for Baltimore from a penalty perspective kind of get overlooked here on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, though, both teams are going to have to, really knuckle down in the trenches here, because that's where the game's going to be won, in the trenches. And the penalties are really just a byproduct of that. So keep an eye on that early, see who's on their game, see if they're calling a lot of offensive holding penalties. And for like in-game betting and stuff like that, if these guys are calling a lot of offensive holding, you may want to look at some in-game under stuff. I like it over, but I'm just telling you, They lead the league in offensive holding penalties per game, and these teams struggle with that. So keep an eye on that early. And I'll just go to the big picture here as far as home teams. Divisional home teams. This is with Clay Martin in his career. 10-22 against the spread. And this season, 2024, divisional home teams 0-4 straight up and 1-3 against the spread.
There you go. Excellent information there. Joe, let's move on to the next big game. I love how you're tackling a couple of these because everybody's going to have their eyeballs on them, and we'll see if it becomes a ref show or not. And this is the Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. And on this one, we've got Land Clark. So we've got Clay Martin on the first one and Land Clark on this one. What do you make of Land Clark being on this call? Who does he benefit the most, and what do you expect?
Okay, so for people who aren't familiar with Land Clark, they are probably familiar with Sean Hockley's crew. So these guys, as far as my numbers, they're the closest resemblance to the Sean Hockley crew that you can get. So just keep that in mind. Couple of things here. So Land Clark, they more of a focus on the offensive side of the ball as far as penalties. This season, they ranked number 1 for illegal formation, and Hockley's number 2. And then number 2 for false start penalties per game. And that's important because for this reason. The Buffalo Bills ranked 2nd for false start penalties per game. And a disproportionate amount of these have come on particularly first and then second down plays. And the Land Clark crew, this is interesting, 71% of their penalties on first and second down plays are on the offense. And to put that in perspective, the league average is 62%. So on those first and second down plays, they put an emphasis on offensive penalties, which is an area that Buffalo has struggled with. Conversely, the Kansas City Chiefs, pre-snap penalties, 32nd in the league. They're the best team, the most disciplined team for all those little things. False starts, illegal formation, illegal shift, things of that nature. The Chiefs are the best. They're the least penalized. Buffalo is one of the most penalized. So right there, it's an advantage for Kansas City. A couple of other things. The Clark's crew, slightly below offensive holding. And that's important because that is a problem area for the Chiefs. It always has been. But the Land Clark crew, of all the offensive penalties, they call a lower than league average for that particular penalty category. Big thing here, home teams with Land Clark in his career, 28, 42, and 2 against the spread, just 40%. The Chiefs are 4-0 with Land Clark. Now, it's a small sample size. I put this on Twitter yesterday, and it's already, the drum beat's building right now that, the league set this one up for Kansas City. But I'm like, you got to pump the brakes on this stuff. It's 4 games. The Chiefs win a lot of games. Everyone knows that. They just happen to win 4 games when Land Clark officiated. So there's no bias here, but people read into this stuff. They buy into this stuff as though the league has some sort of, they want the Chiefs to win. But Chiefs 4-0 with Clark, 3-0 on the road. 2 of those were last season, and those are the numbers.
Well, there you go, Joe. 2 great games. We'll see if some of these referee trends and tendencies carry over into impacting the outcome of these games. But great information as usual. And reminder for you guys, just like with Pam and just like with Ryan, you want more information on Joe. You love what you're hearing here for a brief 5 to 10 minutes each Friday afternoon. Make sure that you're following him on X, and also make sure you're reading his detailed article that he publishes every single week on Thursday, I believe, over at sharpfootballanalysis.com. So make sure you head over there to check that out. All right, that will take us through to a little bit of Q&A if we've got some. But I do want to mention this for the props, and I'll come back to some of the questions in a little bit. Make sure if you guys want to get your questions in or want to provide comments or interact with me during the show, head over to YouTube. Sharp Football Analysis is what you want to search for. We're over there. Channel, we just started it up this year, giving you great information. And this show, this particular show, the Sharp Football Show, is every single Tuesday and Friday live at noon Eastern. So make sure you set an alarm. We'll be here. We'll be communicating with you guys. Subscribe to the show, please. Give this episode a thumbs up. Set an alarm reminder. We'd love to get that interaction with you guys and help our engagement a little bit over there, since it is such a new venture for us that we're entering into. As it relates to the longest props, I was debating whether or not I was going to send out one of these props. Normally what I do is I try to send out some of these props, time it up so that my subscribers over at Sharp Football Analysis are going to be able to get and bet these, and then I share them with you guys, because on this show, I am trying to give you some of my best stuff, right? Like that's why our records are so good. I have a segment here at the end where I'm giving out some of my favorite longest prop bets. Longest completion under, longest run over, longest catch over, these types of things. And so I'm giving you guys my best. I'm also, of course, going to give my best to the subscribers over at Sharp Football Analysis. One prop, though, because it is free week and you can get all of these for free anyways, I figured I was going to give out one of the props that I liked the most yesterday because I wanted to make sure we got a good number on this prop. So if you guys were listening, I'm going to reward, this was a reward to the people that paid attention on the Tuesday show and joined for free week. You already got in on this next one that I'm going to discuss, and you got a better number slightly than what I'm going to give out now, although I still like this line now. Cooper Rush, longest completion, under 29.5. What do I like about this bet? I didn't share this analysis with subscribers because I give out so many props that I love. I don't have time to do analysis for all of these, but Cooper Rush has thrown 248 passes since the beginning of 2022. Only 3 of those 248 have resulted in gains longer than 30 yards. Two of the 3 were negative air yard passes thrown to running backs that they then turned into 30-plus yard gains. In all of his attempts, the easiest way that you're going to have a completion that is 30, 35, 40 yards is by throwing it 30, 35, 40 yards down the field. Typically on those deeper passes, you don't have a lot of yak, but you're also not going to typically, unless you're like the San Francisco 49ers, have a pass that you throw 5 to 10 yards that's then going to produce a 35 or 40 yard gain. So you got to push the ball down the field a little bit. In all of his attempts, 248, he has just one completion of more than 28 air yards. And that was versus a horrible Ron Rivera coached Washington Commanders defense in 2022. Last week, his longest completion was 10 yards. So then here's some other information just on his overall numbers, because I also bet his total total passing yards. I was joking with Ray. I don't know why I made the same slip up here, that I would love to bet Cooper Rush's receiving yards under 187.5, which is what we gave out to subscribers yesterday. Cooper Rush has started 6 games since the beginning of 2022. If you're following me on X, you're going to see a video about this later today anyway, so I'll share some of the information right now. A new venture that we're branching out into. You'll see that on X shortly, but I'll be doing some videos on these props in a partnership that we've got here. He has averaged just 57% completions in his 6 starts with an average target depth of only 7.4 air yards. Now, that doesn't happen. That's not supposed to happen. A quarterback should not be completing just 57% of passes while throwing the ball only 7.4 air yards down the field. If you look at quarterbacks right now that are averaging like sub 59% completions, there's only a couple of them. We're talking about quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson or Russell Wilson, who are chucking the ball way down the field, like an average target depth of over 9 yards. To be throwing the ball that short and have that many incompletions is horrific for a quarterback. Then he's going up against the Houston Texans, who have held opposing quarterbacks to a completion rate 6% below their season average. They've allowed only 54% completions, which is the worst in the NFL for opposing quarterbacks. They held Jared Goff, who was like unbreakable, right? Jared Goff, it sounds crazy to say, like if you were thinking this like 4 years ago, but this year he is been lights out, right? With his completion rate, he's only throwing the ball 23 times, but he's completing 20 of them with 3 touchdowns. The statistics that he was putting up are great. Houston got 5 interceptions off of him last Sunday night and held him to 50% completions. You also have Mike McCarthy now talking about they want to run Rico Dowdle more. And you have the Houston Texans on the other side, which is always important to think about in these matchups. What do the Texans love to do? They love to run the ball on first down or second down. They have a very high run rate. They control the clock. They bleed out the game. And so, no, the Houston Texans aren't underdogs in this game. That's the Dallas Cowboys. So, yes, they'll probably be throwing the ball a little bit more because of the state of the game. But that doesn't mean I think Cooper Rush is going to go off for 30, 35 yards on his longest completion. So I like him under his longest completion at Still at 29.5, which is available literally everywhere. I guess DK's at 28.5 right now, but pretty much every other book I'm looking at on the screen has 29.5. As I mentioned, subscribers got that at 31.5 yesterday. But for the purposes of this show, it's obviously, I'm still giving it out. For prop number 2, I'm going to do the old thing where go subscribe to Free Week, because I've got literally 3 longest props here that we're going to be getting out in probably the next hour to hour and a half, that I really like. And there's more props in addition to that. There's a receiving yards over that I really love that's going to be coming out soon. Doing a lot of reading this week and finding some interesting nuggets about some players whose usage might shift a little bit based upon some of the comments that the OCs have had that I think I'm going to incorporate into some of these props. And so we're going to have a couple of drops here this afternoon of props, and you can get them all for free. So I wouldn't be doing this if you couldn't get these all for free, but you can get them all for free this week. Go to sharp.football. The very top of that page is a banner. It's going to look sort of like what you see up here to your left that says how to get access to Free Week. It's the 1 week that we do it. You can read up on all the games, get all the analysis. We have detailed breakdowns of every single team and every single game and every single key player for all of these teams. Matt, producer Matt, went to the page. This is what will load when you type in sharp.football in your URL. Just click that button, baby. Just click that button right there, and you'll go to the page that takes you to Free Week. Okay. Do I use my own custom odds screen, or is there a service that I prefer? I do subscribe to a couple of services. I'm still on the old Don Best line screen. I also have another couple of services that dabble a little bit more into player props that that I like. So my setup, at one point I'll have to film this for you, but my setup here, because some people joked like I was standing in a shower at one point, but this is the custom office that I built. I've got 2 different odds screens on 2 different monitors over here, left and right, different services focusing on different games and sometimes props versus sides and totals. I've got 2 other computers down here, laptops. In the middle, I've got a 3 stack, 3 different ones. And then I've got 2 TV monitors up there that don't attach to the computers, but that I can watch games and whatnot on. So this is like my nerve center of work. And then I've got my film room over there that at one point we have been building it out throughout the course of the season. May be able to share some of that with you, because I do have a portion of that we've got where I can do some filming and show you guys how I watch games, because I watch games over there, and then I'll come there sometimes in the evening, with the theater seats and recline and watch some of the actual film, or re-watch some of the games and some of the cut-ups that way. Okay, yeah, mission control indeed, Nick. Mission control indeed. Mateo says, do I release teasers as official plays? Haven't noticed the long teaser being consistent. I don't give people a ton of teasers. But when I do, usually I'm trying to get value off of them using that. But I don't probably release enough for you to really notice that. I wouldn't guess. Jason says, when are we going to get Crack on the show as a guest? That's a good question. I could probably have him on anytime that we need to have him on. Maybe even next Tuesday or the week after that. I talk to him almost every single day during the season. So we obviously work together. Before every single game that I'm releasing, he and I are talking, and we're getting down on these games. And so before every subscriber client release, there's communication between me and him about things. So obviously, I'm sure you guys know that by now, but he's a guy that I've been working with for, it might be a decade now. Might be a decade. Jack says, thoughts on Denver. Interesting game. I don't think it's going to get any higher than what it is now. It's definitely not going up to 3. So there's plenty of time to think about that one. If you like Atlanta, there's time to think about that, but more time to think about it if you like the Denver Broncos side here. The splits with Bo Nix when he's pressured versus kept clean are pretty dramatic, and Bo Nix is going to have some opportunities to throw the football. I'm interested to see how they perform in this game against the Atlanta Falcons. Let's just put it that way. There might be something down the stretch on this game. Definitely a prop related to this game that I'll throw out there that I'm not going to get into too much detail right now, and potentially something on the actual game itself. Let me see here. Okay. Do you think the Seahawks will get to 7? I think if the Seahawks got to 7, it depends what the final injury report is for both these teams. If the Seahawks got to 7, they're going to be snapped up very quickly because that is absolutely a team that I think is going to be bought quite quickly if they got to 7. Right now they're 6.5, and they've been stuck at 6.5 all the time. Kyle likes Dawson Knox over 25.5 yards. That's a player prop that he likes. If you guys have any player props that you like this week, feel free to throw them in the comments. And I'm sure other people would like them. I'll check them out too. We'll see how you guys can perform in the comment section. Definitely enjoy seeing other people's thoughts on player props and pick up a thing or two. Certainly with Dawson Knox, you're down Dalton Kincaid. He's officially been ruled out. That is one of the ways to attack the Kansas City Chiefs. They literally are, got my weekly sheets here. They literally are the worst defense defending tight ends. I started tabbing these a couple of weeks ago. The tabs are great. But where are we at here? Kansas City Chiefs. Sitting right here, the third worst in yards per attempt allowed to tight ends. So Buffalo's going to need to throw them. I did see, it's funny how coaches will talk up guys that they now have to stick in a role. Like I want to say it was the offensive coordinator or the head coach, Sean McDermott, said that Dawson Knox is a tight end 1 in this league, and they're happy to have him in the game this week. It's like, really? You think Dawson Knox is a tight end 1 in the league? No. That's and you're happy that Dalton Kincaid is out? No to both of those. Kyle Hamilton, Harbaugh optimistic. BPD said Harbaugh optimistic on Kyle Hamilton will play Sunday, move the needle. Yes, Kyle Hamilton definitely moves the needle. The thing about Kyle Hamilton, if you look at Alex Highsmith, you actually have good splits. You have decent sample size to understand what the splits are with Alex Highsmith on versus off the field, and they're pretty impactful. I got him pulled up right here. When he is for third downs, if he's on the field, opposing quarterbacks are gaining 6.5 yards per attempt, but if he's off the field, 7.4. I shared these with you guys on Tuesday, but when he's on the field, minus 0.24 EPA per attempt for opposing quarterbacks throwing the ball on third down. But when he is off the field, plus 0.02 EPA per attempt. So he is a difference maker, and you have enough of a sample size to understand it. Kyle Hamilton is like on the field all the time. Kyle Hamilton is just used in so many different ways, and he's on the field so frequently that it's difficult to get a gauge as to what his absence, how meaningful that would be. But I'm shocked that he's playing. I was really expecting him to miss this game. When you saw that injury, you saw what happened afterwards. I was just pretty much banking on the fact that he was not going to play this week. So the fact that he is back does, in my opinion, move the needle for the Baltimore Ravens in this spot. Let's see here. BPD, you also had Anthony Richardson over 39 yards rushing. I saw a comment from you before that I wanted Matt to bring up if we had. It was Jason who asked that other question. This was a great one, Matt. 12:55. Appreciate the kind comments here, BPD. I've been a paid subscriber for years. Every year it gets easier to pay. Warren and his crew are the best. I appreciate that. The work has gotten more detailed as the years have gone by. We've focused even more. We've paid a lot of money to get more data, more information. It's kind of, pay it forward. You get revenue from running a business, you reinvest it in bringing on smarter people, better people, building your infrastructure out, and getting better data, better information so that you can continue to provide better and better information. I think the results of that are playing out just in front of your eyes. Rich's worksheet is the very, I don't have to talk about this. You guys probably know this. The very best early week edge that anybody can have if they are betting on football, whether you're betting props, whether you're betting sides and totals. There is not a single other resource out there that will give you a full game breakdown and preview on a Tuesday for next Sunday and do that for every single game. Some of them come out Wednesday morning, but between Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday morning, we are already preparing you guys for that information. That is a resource that's unmatched, and in part because of the data and how hard Rich works. And then you've got us off to the best start we've ever had from a betting perspective on all of the bet sides, totals, and props through week 10 of the football season. Think about this. If you're betting $100 a week on the stuff that we're recommending, you're winning almost $1,000 a week. We're up $9,794 on the season. So it's a great season, but let's continue to carry it on this week. We need a nice bounce back week. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Jordan Love over a half of an interception against the Chicago Bears is a prop that Blake Calderon likes. Peter likes Davante Adams over 60.5 yards for the New York Jets, and Brian Thomas over 70 yards and is looking to ladder those. Two different games. They've been talking about getting Brian Thomas involved. They don't really have the weaponry there. Peter also asked thoughts on Davante Adams this week. He was dealing with the illness, but gets to face a team that gets exposed in the slot, and a 5'9" corner is facing Davante. Yeah, I would trust Rich on his Davante opinions. I will tell you this: I have not yet bet any Davante props, but I would go to the worksheet and let's see if I can pull that up for you real quick, and I'll tell you exactly what Rich says, because I'm only going to do that this week because all of you guys can get this for free up on the website. So might as well share this with you since there's a question on it. But you can look at this for yourselves on the website as well. So Jets at Cardinals, very well organized. Go down to the wide receiver. And here's what he says about Davante Adams. Then I'll get to the EDSR. After two quiet games since joining the Jets, Adams caught 7 of 11 for 91 yards in his first touchdown last week, 3 catches for 66 yards, and 37-yard touchdown in the second half alone. After target shares of 23% and 24% in his first 2 games with the team. My bad. Hold on. I'm reading last week's worksheet. Idiot. Let's go to this week's worksheet. That would be the place to go. Colts at Jets. Scroll down to wide receiver. Davante Adams had 13 targets come his way on Sunday, but ended the day with only 6 catches for, Matt, why don't you bring it up there so people can read along. 6 catches for 31 yards. Adams is playing 48% of his snaps in the slot, to your point, Peter, as opposed to 26% when he was with the Raiders. So he's playing a lot more in the slot. His depth of target has gone from 9.7 yards down the field to only 7.3 with the Jets. 74% of his targets have been shorter than 10 yards down the field after 59% rate with the Raiders. Despite the shorter targets, 13% with the Jets have been inaccurate compared to 7% with the Raiders. So Aaron Rodgers is on him. We also have the same matchup notes above that favor Davante Adams here, and we're talking specifically about Gus Bradley, cover 3, if you want to scroll back up there, Matt, to the Garrett Wilson section, where, again, this is the type of stuff that Rich covers. They play man coverage at the league's lowest rate at 12.9% of pass plays. They run cover 3 at the third highest rate, 44%. And talking about the way that they target these receivers against that coverage and who gets what and where. So there's some information on Davante Adams. Exile, completely agree about Rich's worksheet. Patrick Mahomes over 20.5 rushing yards. Jason, certainly both these quarterbacks are looking to run. And one of the props that we gave out earlier this week, which was a favorite of Rich's, in fact, 2 subscribers, was Josh Adams, the opposing quarterback in this game, over 6.5 rushing attempts. I believe that's up to 7.5 now, if I'm not mistaken. But we took it at over 6.5, minus 135 earlier, knowing that it was probably going to move before too long. Okay. Matt, I like the concept against that Jaguars defense. Matthew Brown asks, how about Jameson Williams props? He has a huge coverage advantage. I like that matchup naturally with Jared Goff and this Detroit Lions passing attack against that secondary. And I certainly believe that they're going to try to get Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions passing attack back on track after throwing 5 interceptions last week. The question is, how much does the Jacksonville Jaguars offense with Mac Jones punch back? Does this game spiral out of control extremely quickly? And if not, I think you're going to have the volume. But there is another way, if you're a subscriber, that I'm planning on attacking this game and that concept that you're bringing to the table in this spot. So there's another way I'm looking to attack it. You'll see that probably this afternoon. I am seeing here right now up on my screen that says Kyle Hamilton says he was good to get a full practice in and he feels good. Quote, if I'm able to play, I'm going to play. Every single one of these counts, especially this one. Kyle Hamilton talking about his upcoming game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously a very special player. And then it says Hamilton adds that he'll be out there on Sunday. So I guess he's being interviewed after practice. Presently, we've got reporters here from, I think, the Baltimore Sun, Jeff Zubek. I think he's from the Sun, talking about what Kyle Hamilton is going to do. So I'm interested to see if that impacts the total at all. This total has been bet pretty high, up to 48.5. And I certainly would expect that if Kyle Hamilton is out there, that should impact the total, but we shall see. Okay, guys, we are now at the hour and a half mark because I did start this on time. Sometimes I'm a couple minutes late. Today I was not. Started at 12 o'clock on the button, I believe. So just remember, free week over at Sharp Football Analysis. We're not going to be talking about free week anymore after this show because Tuesday, there's no more free week. Tuesday, we're looking ahead to week 12. Free week is week 11. If you're not on board, get on board over at sharp.football. Everything we do is 100% free this week. We've had a very good chat today. Oh, Jason, I almost forgot the EDSR mismatches. Let's talk EDSR really briefly. Let me see. We had the Eagles last night. That was a big EDSR mismatch. We have the Chargers over the Bengals. Bengals are taking money. The Chargers have a good EDSR matchup advantage, not because of their offense, but because of their defense compared to the Bengals defense. But I do believe the Chargers defense has not been tested nearly as well, and the Bengals defense is trending better. But as it currently sits, that's one mismatch. And then the huge mismatch, the biggest mismatch actually of this entire week, it is the biggest. There's one more after this. I'll tell you about both. The Baltimore Ravens against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Baltimore Ravens, number 1 early down offense against the Pittsburgh Steelers, number 29 early down offense. Huge mismatch on that side of the ball. Now, they don't play one another, but that's a huge mismatch. And the reason is simple. The Baltimore Ravens, yeah, they've played some weaker defenses, but They are trying to bypass third downs, where, as I mentioned, the Steelers have one of the highest run rates in the NFL, number 2 highest run rate on early downs. And those runs have been less efficient. Matt, if you want to bring up real quick, I don't know how quickly you can go back there, that third Pittsburgh Steelers graphic I had, the number 3, one more. Oh, is that the one? Yep, there you go. Drop back rate versus yards per carry. Perfect. The chat was blocking it. Look at where the Steelers are. Early down runs, they're in the bottom left-hand quadrant, the second highest run rate and one of the lowest yards per carry. So they're facing a ton of third downs as a result. Defensively, I've got the Baltimore Ravens defense actually pretty similar to the Washington Commanders to the Pittsburgh Steelers on early downs. Third down, world of difference, but if we're talking early downs only, that's where that is. You can bring it down now. Thanks, Matt. And the last mismatch is the Houston Texans versus the Dallas Cowboys. And the reason that one is the biggest mismatch, obviously you've got an offensive advantage for the Houston Texans that's even larger now because it's Cooper Rush and not Dak Prescott. But in addition, you have the defense where the Dallas Cowboys are dead last, number 32 on early downs, and the Houston Texans are number 8 defending early downs. Now, we have seen a little bit of Dallas Cowboys money come into the market this afternoon, dropping that line down to Houston -7. Road favorites, state of Texas. I think it was probably good that the Houston Texans had one extra day of rest and then the night, because they've got all day Sunday instead of playing at Sunday at noon local time or something like that. They get the whole rest of the day Sunday, and then they got all day Monday until Monday night. And that was a brutal loss that they sustained last week against the Detroit Lions. They should have had more success than they did against the Lions. The game result, they blew the big lead there. It's probably good that they have a little bit of time back. A little bit of time to rest and prepare mentally for this game against the Dallas Cowboys. And I'll be interested to see, are these Cowboys going to come out, fight for Mike McCarthy, band together and rally, or those comments from Micah Parsons in the locker room were funny. Also interesting, the comments Micah Parsons was making on X last night about the New York Giants botching the Saquon Barkley thing. I will say this, buddy, you got no room to speak when we're talking about owners and management and decision-making with the roster. Your Dallas Cowboys, you brought back Zeke Elliott. You couldn't figure out how to find room to build in and bring in a guy like Derrick Henry. You brought back Zeke Elliott. Your own owner doesn't even want to not blind you during games. He wants the windows there, even if your players don't want the sun to be blocked from blinding them. Jerry Jones doesn't. So he's not even paying to put up the curtains. So I don't think we should talk about who's willing to pay money. But of course, the New York Giants made a mistake there, giving Daniel Jones the money as opposed to getting Saquon Barkley to remain a Giant for the rest of his career, potentially. Okay, that does it for the show. I appreciate all of you guys in the chat. This is a very good engagement this episode. Good luck in all your bets this week. Make sure you guys are following the show and subscribing over on YouTube, Sharp Football Analysis. And make sure you go check out Free Week, absolutely free. Sign up. We'd love to have you on board, show you what we do all weekend long. So with that said, we'll see you guys on Tuesday at noon Eastern. Go,